Hello, everyone, and I hope you're well. My name is Tanner Dagenais, and I'm the host of Self-Sabotage Solutions. On this podcast is my opportunity and my pleasure to be able to share everything I know about self-sabotage and also to be able to share other people's self-sabotage stories. Because it's so important that we know that no matter who we are, where we come from, or what we've experienced in life, that we're able to overcome self-sabotage. And today we have Colli, is it Christante?
It's Christante. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. And she's gonna be sharing her self-sabotage story. And I'm so excited to be able to hear it because just looking over her Facebook page, you can tell that she's a woman of many talents. She's a woman's yoni constellation practitioner and facilitator, a self-sabotage coach, a systemic trauma specialist, and a life coach. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And if you can just introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll go into your story.
Sure. Thank you, Tanner. That was lovely. A great introduction. I sometimes feel so humbled in all my years of life and experience. It's always a pleasure and a great honor to be able to serve and to assist people. And I'm so grateful and honored that you've asked me to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So a little bit about me. Well, I think you did a pretty good intro with regards to to the things that I've accomplished, and there's certificates, right? But the thing is, what I have found over the many years I've been on planet Earth is that it really comes down to life experience, and it really comes down to growing and then sharing. And I call it being of service, in service to others. I don't think I was here just to live out my life for me. So all that I can and all that I do and all, that I've been through in order to do what I do has really been a gift for me from my higher power. So yeah, it's not been without challenges though. So I'm not sure if you want to hear about those challenges.
Yeah, we definitely will want to hear about the challenges because I think it's important other people can, see where you are now and, understand that you were able to overcome those challenges just like they can do in their life. But yeah, that's so awesome. I love the fact that, you were able to overcome these things and you got to a point where you're able to help other people and you chose to do that because so many people are in need of help. And at least I know in my life, it feels so good to be able to help others and to just be able to share, what we know and our experiences with others, because it's just nothing like it to be able to see someone else, be able to move forward in life and get that, that progress and feel good about themselves.
Absolutely. You hit it right on.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess you can just start with your story. Like what led you down to the path, like where you were encountering those obstacles, what helped you overcome them, kind of go into it.
Sure.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, I'm a prairie girl. I was born and raised in a prairie province in Saskatchewan, central Canada. Wheat fields and beautiful sunsets and sunrises. And I was born to a woman, my mother, Frances, who was in a relationship with my father and Leonard, and he was an alcoholic, and he was also what then they called womanizers. And my mom was Polish Catholic and my father was Irish Protestant. So right there was a bone of contention with regards to, the religion. So my father's family really never did take to my mother and made her life very challenging. And so when she conceived me and gave birth to me, she had been convinced that she was not well enough to raise me. So I was given to be raised by my father's sister and her husband. So for the first 6 years of my life, I spent with my aunt and uncle, believing they were my mother and father. And then at the age of 6, I was given back to my biological parents. So it's kind of a story of a reverse Cinderella. I went from living a life with what I perceived to be my mother and father that was quite nourishing. There was food, was clothing, there was love, there was fun. And then back to living with my mom and dad, and my mom still was not well. As a matter of fact, at the time of my birth, she was hospitalized, institutionalized with a mental breakdown. So she suffered through this immensely and continuously. And so when I returned to live with her and my dad, of course, was drinking very heavily, and my mother was dealing with all this. And so she was not available to or for me. And of course, I resented, because I was very confused from 6 years old to, living one kind of lifestyle to another. And when I say lifestyle, when I moved back to live with my biological family, there was no running water, there was no flush toilet, there was no doing laundry in a washing machine. It was hanging it out to dry outside, which is great because it's fresh air. But in the winter, bringing it in and it's ice cold, and no flush toilet. I'm talking about, little tin can or outside. So there was quite a shift there happening. And so we moved at my age of 12, we moved to a larger center, and my mother and father, they purchased their first home, and it had, all the luxuries, running water and all those things. But my mom passed away when I was 14. And being that my dad was an alcoholic, I continued to live with him for a year. And then after that year, the abuse was so immense, verbal, not so much the physical, but the verbal and the sexual connotations. So I moved out. I moved out on my own. I worked 3 jobs, some on the weekends, some after school. And I lived across from the school where I was attending. And I had been a figure skater, and I continued to figure skate. And those things kept me going. So I really supplied my own way through my high school years. And then at 18, I had 2 choices. Because of my figure skating, I had a contract with the Ice Capades, which it was a touring company at that time, much like Cirque du Soleil now, only it was on ice. Excuse me. And also, too, I had a contract with Air Canada, the airline here in Canada. So I really contemplated, I was very confused about what I wanted to do, but then I came down to my values, and my values were such that I wanted to be able to come home at night to a warm place, a safe place, and a comfortable bed. And I knew if I went on the road with the Ice Capades, even though I love skating and still do, I wouldn't have that. I'd be on a bus for mostly 50 weeks of the year. So I chose to become a flight attendant. So I moved to Montreal and trained for 3 months, and then established myself in that career for a while. And I moved from Montreal to Toronto, and then Toronto to Winnipeg to Vancouver, and kept flying. But then I decided it wasn't enough, and I wanted to pursue my education. And I quit the airline, and I went to university to study psychology and other things. But in the meantime, I also became very interested in doing film and TV work. And it wasn't so much that I wanted to be an actress, but I really loved the production aspect. So then I got a position on a very successful international TV show. It's funny because when I was doing things with Jason, how we go through the process with Jason.
Yeah.
Jason laughed. He remembered the show that I actually had worked on in production. So that was kind of cute. But when I was doing that, I was scouted by a personal manager of ex Charlie's Angels, Farrah Fawcett, and Suzanne Summers from Three's Company. So he had asked me if I would be interested in coming down to LA. So he flew me down to LA, and I spent 3 days there. And it was kind of a grooming process for replacing Farrah Fawcett on Charlie's Angels. But when I was there, the things that happened, the things that I was exposed to, the things that I experienced with what I would have to do in order to go further into that arena. And again, it was an attempted rape. It was, being bought through jewelry, being bought through various things, to the point where when I said no, I, received a knock on the door the next morning, and it was, Miss Colli, your limo is waiting. You'll be leaving now.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I flew back to Vancouver and I made another decision. I thought, well, I really love to share stories and I really love to tell the truth. And so I can't do, if I'm going to use what is perceived by other people to be, good looking, attractive woman, I want to use my brawn as well. I want to be able to use my intellect. So then I moved to back to Toronto and I studied journalism and got very involved in that arena. And at that time, when I was doing work in TV with regards to, bringing stories to my producer and editor, various things happened also. In the meanwhile of all this, I ended up getting engaged and getting married, and also to having a little girl about a year and a half later. So I was continuing to work in TV, and there were stories that I brought to my producer, and a couple of stories that were really good. One of how really big pharma is so corrupt.
Yeah.
And this was, we're talking in the early 90s. So it hasn't changed. It's gotten worse, as we know. And so I was actually down in the Bahamas and I heard doctors, they had gotten off. I was at a Club Med because my daughter was 6. And so I went to a family Club Med. And I heard these doctors over talking at the bar about, they were getting off of a shuttle bus, and they were, they had beads, and they were buying their alcohol through beads and things. And they were yucking it up and laughing about how great it was to have this trip all paid for. And, my journalistic ears were like, okay. So what ended up happening was, the trip was paid. And the trip was paid because what happens, or then I'm not sure if it is now, but it probably is called bonus points. So they would knowingly, when a patient was admitted into the hospital, they would knowingly book out the patient before the patient was 100% well, and knowing that they would be re-entering the hospital, and all this stuff was going on, so they would get bonus points. And some of these trips were their bonus points. So, I got back to Toronto, and, I said, Dennis, this can't be happening. This is a huge story. And maybe it is even happening in Canada. And he politely said to me, well, who pays your salary? And I said, well, you do, this company. And he said, no, who pays your salary? And I said, well, you do. And he said, no, Colli, advertisers do. And big pharma is an advertiser. And so are, other means of in the medical world, right? So he said, I'll tell you right now, I can't run this story. And I said, well, why not? And he said, well, possibly if I did, but I won't, you could end up at the bottom of Lake Ontario with cement boots.
Crazy.
Yeah. So then, another story about AIDS, and it was the same. So he just said no. And I said no. So I quit. I walked out, because if I can't be a truth teller in that, area of expertise, why? So onward. So then I got really interested in, many other areas of health, and being as I had been an airline flight attendant and I was on the health and safety board, it just kept drawing me back towards that. And so interestingly enough, I got very, very unwell. I was, in TV. At that point, I was doing some print work, modeling for beauty products and things like that. And I was raising a child, and I was, married to Canada's #1 top male model. And there was a lot of pressure there as well. So there was just a lot of pressure. And I got very sick. I went through all kinds of tests, medically as well as homeopathically and naturopathically. And I came across a wonderful Dr. Kropp, who had his license taken away. He's a medical doctor, but had his license taken away. And he found what was going on with me, and it was chronic fatigue. So he put me through all kinds of IV and, detox, and it was wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful, but I didn't get better. And then he said, you really do need to move out of the Toronto basin. The pollution is so harsh on you. So I moved to Florida with my daughter. And there, my daughter was going to school. And one day she came home with a little book, and it was called How to Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I started to read it. And I went through the process of following everything she said. I did all the making of amends and the writing of letters to people who I had perceived had harmed me or hurt me or whatever. And I just really grasped onto this whole area of wellness and being whole and complete and taking charge of my own life and not being a victim. And so I moved back to Toronto because I got well. It was great. I mean, I ended up going to Florida with an oxygen tank. I was on oxygen, and he told me, if you make it, it'll take about 6 months just being away from all the stresses and everything, right? And that's exactly what happened. And the book. So I went back to Toronto and went back into being with my husband, and I started to get sick again.
Oh, no.
So I knew that the relationship was a challenge. And I wasn't sure at the time of how or what. I just knew that I was getting sicker again, and I ended up back on oxygen. So roll forward, my ex-husband, we're good friends, but that's why he's an ex. It's better to be friends, right?
Yep.
Than enemies when you're in a relationship. Values, we just didn't have the same values. So he was getting bored, and we were also facing a recession and a few other things. So he wanted to move to Vancouver. So I said, okay, well, you go to Vancouver and, you do your thing. And then when you're established and settled, we'll come out. Well, in the meanwhile, when I got back to Toronto from Florida, I started to study neurolinguistic programming. And through neurolinguistic programming, I really was able to tweak big time, and major shifts started. And so I fell in love with it. And I got to train with the world's leading experts, the people who actually trained Tony Robbins.
Wow.
And they were amazing. There was Christina Hall, and there was Eric Robbie from London, England, and Robert Klaus from the Pentagon. He's the one who, be all you can be, join the army. Yeah, that's an NLP statement, right? And he's the one who coined that. So anyway, I got to study with all these wonderful, amazing human beings, and I also got to bring them to Toronto to do trainings, and in Montreal. So I became their kind of representative to put the events together. So that was wonderful. And then the time came to move to Vancouver to be with family, to be with my then husband and have our daughter be family again. But when I got to Vancouver, it wasn't what it was supposed to be, even though I had lived there before and I knew Vancouver very well. I had changed, so everything was changing. And the promises that were given in order to get us to come there were not there. So then again, I knew this was not going well. So I continued to study with neurolinguistic programming, and I was chosen to fly down to California, to Santa Cruz, to work with a couple of the top trainers. And I did their their videos, and then I transcribed them at that time and created documentaries for them. And while I was there for a 6-week period. My daughter phoned and said, you know, Dad is, I don't know if he's drinking or if he's doing drugs or whatever, but he is wanting to drive your car. And that was not a good idea because I had taken the insurance off my car because I wasn't there. So I put it in storage, and he didn't have a driver's license. So so I was freaked because he didn't have a driver's license. He had been in a very bad accident many years before I had met him. And then it sort of caught up to him when we got married, because he was a celebrity in Toronto. And there was an announcement in the newspaper that this celebrity was getting married. And of course, they posted a picture of me and him and the Toronto Star. And so the accident that he had caught up with him through that. There was a window of about 5 days left for this family to come after him for this accident. And they did. And I had no idea about it. So the day after we got married, there was a sheriff at the door with this notice that you're going to court, right? So long story short, he did lose his license, and which, you know, he should have. So anyway, my daughter was saying, you know, Dad wants to drive. And I said, could you please put him on the phone? And that time there was no cell phone. So, and he didn't want to speak with me. And finally he did. And I said, you can't drive my car. And he got really enraged and he swore at my daughter on the phone. And so consequently, I knew that was it. And so again, I'm doing this work in California. I'm not home. I can't, you know, rescue, you know, and this is a key word for me, is rescue. And so I got very sick again. And I went, this is it. So from California, I started to dig my way out and changed, you know, canceled bank accounts and just did things like that, and made the decision that when I got back to Vancouver, that was it. So when I got back to Vancouver, I just spoke with him and I said, you know, you're really unhappy. You want to go back to Toronto now. It's the geographical cure, right? Alcoholics, right? Or even users of any sort. They're always looking for a cure outside of themselves. So he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, you go. And when, you know, when you get settled, we'll come. And I knew we wouldn't. And so he went. I packed up the place, put it in storage, and knew that was the end of that relationship. And it was. And so from there, all that time I'd been in Vancouver, I was, you know, doing NLP, but I had also become a kinesiologist and a specialized kinesiologist. And I specialized with working with peak performers and athletes. And so, you know, working the mind body through the kinesiology, but the specialized kinesiology is when you tap into all the muscles and the meridians and the higher glands in the brain, because it's all connected. And if it's not all balanced, it's not a win-win for an athlete. So I specialized with athletes and entertainers, and it was very successful, and I loved it. And I still today have clients that, you know, have gone on to the NHL and NBA and other areas, and they still stay in touch with me. It just profound work, and such gifts to be given and to know and to learn from the experts that I did. So I combined everything. I combined the Psych K kinesiology, specialized kinesiology, touch for health, NLP, and all that into one umbrella. And I utilized it and served my clients. And so the time came. I was also asked at that time in Vancouver to, after, you know, my daughter and I moved on, to teach. So I was teaching at the Vancouver Film School, and I was teaching communication, mind-body communication, but how to incorporate that into the computer, because that's what it was all about. So I was assisting students to take second position as if they were the computer and create over a year this wonderful program for them to then go out in the work world. And that was so amazing. And then also to worked with Electronic Arts University. But in the meanwhile, I had made what I would say a contract with my daughter that after I got divorced, that I would not enter into a relationship of any sort with a male until she had graduated, because I knew it would be very challenging to introduce someone into her life when she was going through, you know, the loss and the grief of the family life, right? So I didn't. And but after, you know, after she graduated, it was interesting, because I laugh about this with Jason too. I was at Starbucks and this gentleman was behind me, and, you know, he's obviously very smitten with me. And he tried to buy me a coffee, and I said, no, 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 no. And he says, well, here's my business card. If you ever want to go for a coffee, just call me. And I said, yeah, okay, fine, thanks. And I went back to my car, and you know, my daughter was in there, and he pulled up right beside the car, and he rolled his window down, and he said, I just think your mother's so beautiful. I would like to take her for a coffee. And my daughter's like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so roll forward. I didn't call him. And then, you know, my daughter about 3-4 months later said, well, what could a coffee hurt, Mom? So, you know, oh yeah, okay. So there's a metaphor to coffee here. So, you know, 4 months later, right, I go for a coffee, and it turned into a psychopathic stalker killer relationship.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we are talking brutal, brutal. I can laugh about it now. No names mentioned, but yeah, he was an investment advisor and tried to, you know, basically buy me. And after, you know, being not in a relationship for 5 years and everything, you know, the flowers and everything, it was great. The trips were great, but then came the control, and then came the sickness of that kind of a relationship. And it was tough. I mean, we were building a home together, you know, and at the end of the relationship, it started like in April and it was over in November. It was a very short window of time, but it got to the point where, you know, he took me to the home that we were, you know, I had designed and we were putting together. And it was very windy, very cold, rainy Vancouver weather. And, you know, the construction was kind of still flapping. And he took me up to the spiral staircase and opened up the drawbridge where the French doors were. And he said, this room is for a queen and you are a queen. But then on the way down, he said, you know, it'd be awful to fall down these stairs, wouldn't it? So when we got back to his then apartment, it was very clear that this was done and I had to get out because it was trouble. So I left, and as I left, I just said, you know, I'm going to take out the garbage. Do you want me to take anything out for dinner? And it's a metaphor. I'm going to take out the garbage. So I left, and then I went to a friend's house that night, and he called the police saying that I had stolen his car, which was a lie, because he said to me, which car would you like to take while you're whatever? So I went back after that to that apartment and got my things. And then the threats came, and I had to move into, I ended up, well, first of all, I ended up in a car accident the same night. And after the accident, my girlfriend came and got, you know, when I was able to get out, got me and took me to her place and said, you know, I'm going to be traveling for almost a year. Why don't you just move into the upstairs? If you just take care of the house, it's all good. It's hidden. You'll be safe, right? But the night she left and the night I moved in, the phone rang. And I picked up the phone and there was a voice and said, hi, Colli. And I said, yeah. And they said, this is Barry. And I went, oh, I thought it was my cousin Barry. But then I went, how does he know that I'm moving into my girlfriend's house? This is just not. So he said, you know, you remember me. I said, Barry, my cousin? He goes, no. He says, we were on chat last night. He says, you know, we're doing chat all the time. I said, we are? And he said, oh yeah. He says, I know exactly what kind of lingerie you like, what you're wearing, everything. And I was like, oh my God, freaked. Like, wow. I said, please, who are you? Please, I don't know you, please. And I started to cry. I said, you've got to work with me. He said, oh no. He says, you know, he says, we're having a great relationship. I said, we don't have a relationship. And roll forward. What had happened was the gentleman, not even a gentleman, the psychopath that I had been in a relationship with, had taken a picture of my driver's license, unbeknownst to me, and he had put it onto a porn site. And so what happened was now these people were all, finding me right through my website and just through all this stuff. And so long story short, that lasted for about a couple of months until finally the RCMP here in Canada were able to find the web and have everything removed. And but yeah, it was stalking, and it went on for a while longer because my daughter was supposed to do a volunteer work with my girlfriend, and she was a caterer, and my daughter couldn't make it, so I opted in, but I had my daughter's car. And as I was driving to the event, my spidey senses, I felt like I was being followed. And then I went, oh no, it's, he doesn't care anymore. Because usually with these type of people, narcissistic psychopaths, once they find another prey, they move on, right? That's what they do. So I thought, well, okay. So we got to the event and I'm doing stuff, and my girlfriend said to me, oh, we're out of cream. Could you go get some? So I went to get my purse and it was gone. And I went, oh my God. And my girlfriend's purse was gone. And the other friend of hers her purse was gone. I went out, the car was gone. And I just freaked. So called the police and they came. So of course my cell phone was gone, my wallet was gone, everything was gone. And then I had to get in touch with my daughter. Your car is gone. So roll forward. That night, the police came after many hours and said the car had been totaled, that it had been driven through a McDonald's, and there was like ketchup and hamburger and just gross. And the people, whoever took it, one person went through the windshield when they hit something and they couldn't track them. And they couldn't find the others. Wow. So that had been set up as well. So roll forward. I started to really investigate more and more about this of which I was attracting, why I was attracting the energy of men that were like this, and also to, with substance abuse issues and all these things. So what was it about me? Because it wasn't about them, but I have an energy that needs to be shifted. Through all the work I had done, through everything I'd done, something was still staying the same. There was a pattern. So I started to see a psychologist in Vancouver who specialized in narcissism and also with regards to these type of patterns. And he was brilliant, and he did a lot of EMDR work with me. And he gave me a very good piece of advice. And he said, when you're in these type of relationships over the years, no contact means no contact. So that means that if there's an email, you don't answer. If there's a phone call, you don't answer. If there's a text, you don't answer. No contact, because eventually these people will go away, this type of person. But your energy will stay the same. So let's work on that. So I started to work with a shaman in Vancouver who is from Oaxaca, Mexico. And she worked with me for a few years. And also all this time I had been doing yoga with a master yoga instructor. And unbeknownst to me, I became a yoga instructor, even though I wasn't intending on it. But she said, one day you are now certified. So I started to do volunteer work for women in shelters, abused women, to give back, and also to continue my work with the psychologist. But then I also did this work with the shaman, and she told me one day, you must do family constellation work. And I was like, by this time now, I was moving from Vancouver to where I am now. And I said, Lenore, what the hell is family constellations? I've never heard of it, right? And she says, well, it's partially what I do as a shaman. And you have those gifts. So I highly recommend you do research. I was like, great, here we go, another path, right? And she said, no, you've been working up all this time towards this. So I researched it, and I'm like, where am I going to learn this? Like, this is insanity. I live in the middle of the prairies. Nobody is trained in this whole province. And then I came across a book called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wallen. And I had the bookstore hold it, and I went into the city and got it because I was living out in the country. And I flipped through it, and then I was like, I got to study with this guy. And so I phoned his assistant. She said, oh, well, he's doing a seminar in Victoria this next week. And I was like, great. That's like 3 provinces over. It's, whatever. But I did it. I got there. I drove and I did the workshop. And in that workshop, I knew this is the beginning of huge shifts. So I trained with him. And then I went online and I found a trainer who is from Spain. And I worked with her for 3 years training online. And then I got to the point where I was invited to do postgraduate work in trauma, specialized trauma, systemic trauma, with the leading expert of it, who she traveled with Bert Hellinger. She was his right-hand gal, and Peter Levine, which is the somatic work that she trained in as well. So I've been doing that for the past 4 years now, and working on my postgraduate. Well, not 4 years, 2 years with postgraduate, but doing that and working with clients. And then I came across Jason, and it was interesting, right? I all the work I was doing in constellation, all the programming I learned, and all the techniques and everything, I just felt, I just want to check this guy out. I just want to check out what he's got and his program. And so I did. And it was very interesting program and very profound, as was everything I've done and learned. And it was interesting with Jason because in those 2 1-hour sessions we get with him, he nailed it with me. I knew it, but when he just was succinctly like boom, boom, about the the energy of these guys that I attracted and the situations, and it's the over rescuing. Yeah. Because I was the perfect rescuer, right? I would, slave. I would do whatever it took to heal them, to help them, to make them better, to eat better, to do whatever. And all that came with my coaching, right? But in personal relationships, it took its toll on me big time. So when Jason, worked with me on that, it all just sort of, it was like this. Oh, I get it now. I really get it, right? I got it. And the beauty in all that is that, from that and the family constellations, because in family constellations, there's this thing called hidden loyalty. So now I combine the self-sabotage work and the hidden loyalties, because it's easy for a person to think they're self-sabotaging themselves, but a lot of times they don't understand that they're doing it because of hidden loyalties. And the hidden loyalties are unconscious. So we can be, moving 5 steps forward and 50,000 backward, and doing this repetitively as a pattern in all areas of our life, but not getting to it because there's maybe a wiggle niggle in our family ancestry that in fact we're playing out. So we're playing out the life they didn't complete. And that was true in my case. I was playing out for my mother because of her unwellness and everything, but she was, didn't complete her life and didn't ever go past a certain point in her life. So I was playing that out, and I was attracting these men, and I was attracting these situations. So the unconscious, the hidden loyalties, they're blind. It's no different than when we are driving in a car, there's blind spots. And sometimes the blind spot can cause an accident because we're not paying attention. So with the hidden loyalties, I love them because they are hidden, but they're loyal, and people can and are and will be so loyal to family members unconsciously that they will actually die instead of them. children, when parents are unwell or parents are fighting, children will take on this, I will do it for you instead of you. And it happens. I had the case with a family. The mother was pregnant with her second child, and the 6-year-old boy, he ended up becoming very unwell. He knew the mother was not doing well. He knew she was depressed. He knew there was a problem in the relationship, because kids know, they just know. And he got very unwell. He was taken to the hospital, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. They couldn't believe that they couldn't find anything wrong with him. Wow. He was on oxygen, he was on steroids. And in a session later, because I have now, he is now older, and in a session now, like I did with him, he said he had unconsciously made a choice point at that point that if he died, his mother would be well enough, and the baby would, that the family with the new baby would be better. Like it's unbelievable. It's so powerful, right? So then you get the combination of sabotage and hidden loyalties. And so what I do is kind of detective work, right? I mean, as coaches, self-sabotage coaches, that's what we do. When we work with clients, we uncover things. I uncover a little bit more now with the gift that I have through family constellations, and that is the hidden loyalties. So who are you being loyal to? And if you just ask that question to a person, they go, what are you talking about? They go, what are you talking about? I'm not loyal to anybody. I mean, or maybe I am, my dog and my wife, my husband, or what, but they don't, I didn't think, I had no idea. And my whole process through all that I've been through has been to heal. And unbeknownst to me is all about healing the woundedness, the trauma I went through as a child, and the mother-daughter separation, and also to the bond. The mother bond is the strongest bond that any human being ever has, boys or girls. It doesn't matter. Our mothers are our first love. I mean, when we look into our mother's eyes when we're born, that's it. We're in love, right? And it's interesting about family constellations too, because the orders of love are very important, right? So from 0 to 6, the child should be with the mother. I mean, the father as well, but the mother is very nurturing and loving and providing, and daddy's doing his thing and playing and stuff. And then for a boy at 7 till 14, it's called going back to the father. The father shows the son the way of the world. He takes him fishing, he takes him hiking, he takes him to work or whatever. And then from 14 on to 18, the boy stays with the father. He still learns more and more of. For the girl, she goes to the daddy from 7 to 13, and then she becomes a young woman. Her period starts, or her breasts grow or whatever. So she goes back to the mother, and the mother teaches her all about being a woman. So those things come into play as well, right? So hidden loyalties and the orders of love and all that. But the sabotage, like I say, with regards to how powerful it is and how many people are suffering with sabotaging themselves, and not knowing that they're doing it, and wanting a way out, and yet not knowing how to get out. I didn't, and even like I say, with all the training and the expertise and the life experience and everything that I've had and all I've been through, that there was that just one little snippet that Jason shared with me that just kind of, I was like, whoa. So then and then I was able to, through family constellations, the trauma work that I've been trained in, to decode it for myself and go right back to when. Because see, the thing is, my addiction wasn't alcohol or coffee or smoking. I never smoked. Yeah, I drank a little bit of red wine. I liked a little bit of coffee, but it wasn't like, pervasive and ruling my life. Or junk food, never been really into it. The odd bowl of popcorn, or you know what I mean, stuff like that. And I've been very, very careful all my life about what I started to put into my body when I was quite young. So I've been very blessed that way. But my addiction was rescuing people. And so I still have to be careful in working with my clients. I have to know when I could be triggered. And if I ever notice that I'm being triggered, I have to pull out and go, what is triggering me? And sometimes I'll even stop a session until I figure it out, because I won't work with someone if I'm being triggered, because that's really unfair to the client and unfair to me. It means that something is not complete yet, right? So now, yeah, I with the family constellations, I specifically, I work with gentlemen as well, you know, but with women, it's I'm helping them go from sacrificing and sabotaging and betraying them, their self, their sacred feminine, right? And so that they can live a life to style their womanhood, rather than to, you know, follow whoever has, you know, I'm not saying all parents don't raise kids properly. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, you know, we as a family are a tribe. And if we are being raised with a specific set of, you know, values and beliefs, and we follow those, and it's not working, and it didn't work for our family, how can we expect it to work for us? It's borrowing other people's beliefs. And so I tell people, you know, that's great. You borrowed those and you tried them on for a while. And how's that working for you? And if it's not, then maybe it's time to give those beliefs back. Because like anything, if I borrow something from someone, I'm expected to give it back. So if I've borrowed beliefs and they're not working, you can have them back.
Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. You know, you can have them back. It's you know, no harm, no harm, none. So yeah, so it's about, you know, reconnecting to, and not so much even the authenticity of who you really are, who you're meant to be. I think at the end of the day, that we're all okay. That there's really nothing wrong with anybody. That, you know, that it's perception. Oh, I got to fix myself, I'm horrible. No, it's not about that at all. It's about tweaking, and it's about, you know, not fixing. Nothing's broken. It's just shifting the map of reality. And you know, I work with something called the logical levels of alignment, and it's kind of like a circle of excellence. And so I take people through a process of, in this environment, with these, you know, capabilities and these skills and these values and these beliefs, this is what shapes your identity. But you need to go past the identity I am into another arena called the transmission link, which is who else is involved here? You know, are you connected to your higher power? Are you connected to maybe a God? Are you connected to the stars? Are you connected to your family? Are you connected to your community? Are you so taking it past the ego, right? I am. And then once those are balanced and aligned, then when there's a trip up, then something's out of alignment, and it can be easily tweaked. But it's getting to that. It's getting to that through, you know, when people come and they're sabotaging, right? It's getting to some of those deeper things, the beliefs especially, and if they've borrowed them, to give them back, and give them back without guilt, because a lot of people walk around with guilt, right? Well, my parents did it this way, or this, you know, if I eat this, how can I, you know, my wife or my boyfriend or my girlfriend or my brother or my sister or my dog or whatever, you know, so I just work with all of that. It's kind of a blend to make it. And I go with my intuition. I go with, and I get out of my own way. It's like I did a women's circle a while ago, and it was a profound workshop, not because I did it, but what happened and transpired in it. And it was a mix of systemic trauma and sabotage. And so in the workshop, the events that unfolded, I was even taken back. And so because I am doing my postgraduate in trauma, I talked to my professor about it, you know, with regards to, because she supervises. And I explained to her, I was like, this is what happened. And you know what she said to me?
What?
Stop puffing yourself up. Because it went really well, you had nothing to do with it. What happened there was the right people, including you, the right building, the right place, the right time. The people were ready, and you are trained. So had nothing to do with you. So that's my take. It has nothing to do with me. All that I've been through, all the trauma, all the life experience, all the stuff, it was all not even meant to be, but it's my path, and it's my soul's calling, and it's my destiny to be able to bring it, and my gifts to share with others, and to hopefully give them not even hope, but a shift, not fix them, because they're going to do it themselves. All I do is present the possibilities, right? And to see things that we don't see when we're looking through, you know, a blinded vision. So I just peel back layers of things that they might not even have noticed, because that's what's been done for me. I mean, given the person I was umpteen years ago, you know, I just go, some days I go, wow, all that. And you're still here, you're still smiling, you're still in love with life, and even more so that you get to share it with others and shift them with regards to how they might and can stop self-sabotaging.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. Wow. You've been through so much, and you know how the beginning when I said you're a woman of many talents, I was blown away by just how much stuff you've done in your life, like different like, you know, the reporting, the acting, like you've done it all, it sounds like. And it's awesome that you're able to put that, like everything you've learned together to help people.
Yeah, it's a gift, you know, and I embrace it, and I never take it for granted, never. And Tanner, I thank, you know, my higher power, God, every day. I'm just a woman of blessed gratitude, and brings me even tears today to speak with you, because I so, you know, on our journey together as coaching, with regards to seeing you and your posts and things, I just knew you're destined for big.
Thank you.
You're destined for big. And when I say big, it's to big changes for big changes for a lot of people. And you have a gift, and I just wish you the best. I so adore, and I'm humbled, and I'm grateful to be on your show.
Thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I do have a question. So, you know, you were sharing your whole story, and I know you went through NLP. You said how that important that was for you. So, I know for me, like the way I spoke to myself, like in my head, and like the words I used for myself was just so important, and just being able to move forward. And like, if you would ask me like 5 years ago, would I be on this podcast or on any podcast, speaking in front of people, I'd be like, no way. I hate public speaking. I hate all this. So how important was that for you? In like
The
moving
NLP?
Yeah, or just even like speaking to, or like adjusting the way you spoke to yourself.
Oh, huge. It's vital. I mean, because we're doing it all the time. And so what we're putting in is what we're putting out, right? So yeah, it's you know, I call it when I used to train the film school, I used to tell my students, when this happens to you, you just say to the inner bitty shitty committee that you are not having a meeting today, that there's no meeting. You're not going to have this meeting. So maybe we can talk later, but as of for now, I'm moving forward in the direction that I'm going, and I'm going to get there. And so no meeting. And so I've done that many times, and I still do sometimes, you know, if it comes up, I just go, no, we're not having that meeting today. I'm not listening, you know, and then I'll tweak it, right? I'll tweak it and I'll source it out going, where's that coming from? Come on, get over yourself, right? Meditation helps tremendously, right? I meditate every day. And all the other things, but the inner voice, the inner critic, right, is profound. But it's just really saying, no, I'm not having this meeting today. I don't need to talk to you. Go away.
I love that.
Go away. But yeah, NLP really taught me a tremendous amount about that, for sure. And I had to really take a look at, where that was coming from, and how to reframe it, right? That's all it is it's reframing everything. We get choices constantly, every day, hundreds of choices we're faced with. So, red pill, blue pill, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you had one thing you can share with like the listeners on the podcast today, what would be the main takeaway that you'd want them to take away?
I would say that to never give up, and that there is always a new beginning with all of the foundation you've already have under you. And it's just a matter of shape-shifting. And you can shape-shift very easily. It takes work, but it's so worth it, because you get to restyle your life for you in the way that you desire and want, and you can have it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so by shapeshifting, you're talking about like that, like their like identity of themselves, right? Like they believe themselves as one thing.
Yeah, shape-shifting, it's not just thinking, oh, I'm this today and then tomorrow I'll be that. No, you bring everything with you that you've already, like I have, everything, nothing is for naught. So all that you've been through is a gift. And then shapeshift that and utilize that and take that wisdom and everything and then shapeshift it into the next, and to bring it forth, right? Because it's most people go, oh, I should never have done that, did it, all this, but you have to look at it as the gift and how to transform it, that transformation to shapeshift, and bring that with you and carry it with you as your foundation as you move forward into even greater things, and being and doing the things you really want and desire, because it's all possible. It's all possible. I never thought in a month of Sundays, 6-year-old girl, going from one lifestyle to another. I thought that, outhouses and no running water at that point was going to be my destiny. It isn't. It hasn't been. I have fought very hard for where I am now and who I've become. And it's not about surviving. It's about thriving. And it's about sharing all the things that I have gone through, been through, done, and give it out. I can't give out enough, and it's not rescuing anymore, because I charge.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So if someone did want to work with you, where can they find you? I'll post your links down below as well.
Yeah. They can, just my name, my website, it's, www.Colli K Christante and .com, or Facebook. It's all good. I figure it this way. If people want me, they'll find me. So it's all good. Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I'm sure this story is going to be very helpful for so many people. Just they can either maybe like relate on some aspects, or get some motivation, or just even to see that you're able to move past even the darkest of times.
Absolutely. And for women, and it's not just women that are abused, men are too. So the abuse has to stop, but it can only stop with you. And that means that we stop playing the victim.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Lots of love, Tanner. Blessings, and
thank you.
All the best. And I just know you're going to give it. It's all good.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you. Thank you so much. Lots of love. Okay.